When Ramnath passed away at the age of 71, no one in the neighborhood noticed right away. It wasn't until the milkman found the bottle from the previous day still sitting untouched at the gate that someone raised a question. By evening, the door had been forced open, and the news spread quietly. Ramnath was gone. He hadn't died tragically, nor dramatically. No accident, no sudden illness. He had simply drifted away in his sleep, alone in the small house he had lived in for the past 30 years. A peaceful death, the doctor said. But those who knew him, or thought they did, couldn't help but wonder, was his life peaceful too? Ramnath had always been a quiet man. He wasn't unfriendly, just private. He had once worked as a bank clerk, retiring after decades of service. His wife, Pushpa, had died young, and they never had children. After her death, he had grown more reserved, though he still nodded politely to the neighbors, kept his garden neat, and visited the local temple every Friday. He wasn't known for grand gestures or stirring conversations. He didn't host parties or join community events. But he was always there, watering plants, sweeping the front steps, buying vegetables at exactly 7:30 every morning. A routine so steady, it became invisible. After his death, the neighbors entered his home cautiously. The living room was modest. A wooden chair near the window, a small table with a transistor radio, and a bookshelf lined with old paperbacks. On one shelf was a framed photograph of Pushpa, draped now with a wilting garland someone had placed that morning. As they sorted through his belongings, they found a notebook neatly kept with a simple title on the first page, Things I've Learned. Inside were dated entries, short reflections spanning over 20 years. No one expected such a treasure. Line after line, page after page, Ramnath had quietly been writing his truths, as if preparing for someone someday to understand. One entry read, May 3rd, 2001. When Pushpa died, I thought grief would roar like a river. But it doesn't. It drips like a tap. You think you fixed it, and then suddenly your hand reaches for hers in the middle of the night. I've learned that grief never leaves. It just teaches you to carry it better. Another. August 19th, 2007, a neighbor asked why I live alone. I told him being alone is not the same as being lonely. Some silences are chosen, and they are kinder than words spoken out of obligation. And this one. February 2nd, 2015. I saw a boy scold his grandfather for forgetting a phone password. I smiled because one day the boy will forget where he kept his own memories. I've learned that age isn't just a number. It's a series of lessons others are too young to hear. Word of the notebook spread. People who had never exchanged more than a polite greeting with Ramnath now stood in quiet awe of the man they never truly knew. His death became a mirror, reflecting back at them their own routines, their rushed lives, their forgotten moments of kindness or introspection. At his modest cremation, the crowd was surprisingly large. The temple priest spoke of how Ramnath never missed a prayer. The fruit vendor said he always paid exact change, even when others were careless. A schoolboy mentioned how Ramnath once returned his lost geometry box, tied with string and a note that said, "Take care of your things." It teaches you how to take care of yourself. In the weeks that followed, more entries from his notebook were shared by the local librarian, who had known Ramnath from his quiet visits every Tuesday. June 11th, 2019. I stopped keeping a calendar. Days blur anyway, but I still count sunsets. They remind me that endings can be beautiful too. October 5th, 2022. I once asked a bird why it sings even when no one listens. Then I realized it sings because it must, because that's what it was born to do. I suppose I write for the same reason. It became clear that Ramnath hadn't lived an empty life, as some had assumed. He had simply lived inwardly. He had observed, absorbed, and recorded. He didn't perform life, he reflected on it. And in doing so, he had found a quiet kind of meaning. In the world outside, people were busy achieving, building, buying, upgrading. Ramnath, by contrast, had been mastering the art of being. His death wasn't a loss in the conventional sense. It was a revelation, a reminder that even a small life can leave a large legacy if lived with attention. One final entry was read at the small memorial service the neighbors held in his honor. January 1st, 2024. I may not have built empires, but I built a home. I may not have changed the world, but I kept a few promises. I may not be remembered for speeches or sons, but I will be remembered by the plants I watered, the books I read, the peace I left behind. The words fell like sunlight on closed eyes. Simple. Warm. True. After his ashes were immersed in the river, the community decided to plant a small garden in his name beside the temple. Not a grand memorial, just a patch of marigolds and tulsi with a bench nearby. On the bench, a small plaque was placed. Ramnath, he noticed life when others passed it by. And perhaps that was his greatest lesson, that a life doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. That presence is a form of love, that even silence can speak. Ramnath's story didn't teach people how to live forever. It taught them how to live now, attentively, kindly, honestly. He had lived without fanfare, died without ceremony, but left behind something rare, the honest truth of a life fully seen.